Welcome to the loop slide. Loops are typically used to repeat actions based on a condition. If the set condition returns a true value, the loop continues to execute and only stops when the condition returns a false value. Below are some of the JavaScript looping system. Number 1, the for loop. This is the most basic looping system in JavaScript, as it has three main components: the initialized value, the condition, and the increment. Where if the condition is met, the block of code is executed and an increment is made. This loops until the condition returns false. In the simple snippet of the code here, we are having the variable array, which has three elements: a leader, school, and JavaScript. And with the knowledge of the index counting system, the Alida school occupies the zero index position. The Alida, occupies the zero index position. The school occupies the 1 index position, while the JavaScript occupies the 2 index position, meaning we have 0, 1, and 2. But the total length is 1, 2, and 3. That is the total length of the array. Now, using the for loop, we are having the for, the initialized value, which is variable I, equal to 0, the condition stating that I is less than array.length, and the increment. Notice how I'm using the semicolon to terminate each statement made. And then again, we have the block of code where we have the set of functions we wish to run while looping. How does this work? Currently, we have 0 assigned to this variable I. Now, the condition gets to be checked. Is the current value of I less than the array.length? If it is, run this block of code, console.log array. Using the index approach of assessing elements in an array, we are going to pass I, which at the moment has a value of 0, meaning console.log array at the 0th index, which is a leader. After this, it gets to increase the value of the I, which means 0 plus plus means 0 plus 1. So this changes to 1. I becomes 1. Now I is now being checked again for the condition's sake. Is I less than array.length, and the current value of I becomes 1. So is 1 less than array.length? And what is the length of the array? 1, 2, and 3. So technically I is less than 3. That means this code gets to be run. Console.log array to the index of I, and the current value of the I is 1. So what is the number 1 index of array? This is 0 index, this is number 1 index, and this is number 2 index. So we are going to be printing school. Once this is done, we'll get to increase the value of the I again. So it's going to increase from 1 to 2. We go over here and check, is 2 less than array.length? We have here 1, 2, 3, which is the length. So 2 is less than 3. So yes, we get to console.log array to the index of 2, because the current value of I is 2. And we get to print 0, 1, and 2. Alright, this is the index 0, 1, and 2. So we print JavaScript. Now once we're done with that, we increase the value of I, which means 2 plus 1 giving us 3. Now we go over here and we check, is 3 less than array.length? 3 is equal to the length of the array, because the length of the array is 1, 2, and 3. So 3 is not less than 3. Right? So because of this condition is no longer met, the block of code would not be run. So you only get to have a leader, school, and JavaScript printed. Using for of loop. This approach is basically tackling the elements in the array, as it has access to just the elements. From the snippet, we'll see the same array we used as before: a leader, school, and JavaScript, where we are simply printing the element of array console.log element. So it gets to tackle each of the elements in the array and prints the value for us. For loop in JavaScript. This is a method that calls a function for each element in an array. Here we have the same variable we declared initially. Now passing the for loop, for each rather, to the array that we declared, it has a function which contains the element. So at every interval of looping through the array, we have access to each and every one of the elements stored inside of this element. And this block of code here allows us to print those elements we are looping through. So as we're looping through the array, When we get to the leader, we print it out. When we get to school, we print it out. When we get to JavaScript, we print it out. And this is how to use for each. While loop. This loops through a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. This is an example. I'm declaring a variable outside and saying var I is equal to 0, and I'm using 0 because I want to start from the index 0. While I is less than array.length, console.log array to the index of I. And here we need to add the increment I++ so that we will be able to increase the value of I and also monitor our condition. Without this increment, this is going to turn into an infinite loop, as it will keep on printing the 0 index of the array. So with this, we've been able to cover the looping system in JavaScript. And note both the for and the while loop uses the current value of I to access the array values using the square bracket notation, while the for of specifically targets that particular element.